WyzGyz Entertainment. This is your host, Wyman. This is the out of the theater, I guess, movie review for Masters of the Universe. I was originally thinking I'd do it after I got out of the theater, but it was past midnight and I was getting tired and I still had to get home. And by the time I got home, I didn't feel like doing it. So I'm doing it now. Um, I gotta say, I was afraid I wouldn't like it, but I actually did really enjoy it. Um, I recognize I recognize a lot of the characters in the movie, and there were a couple characters. Well, one of the characters, one of the villains, I think is actually pulled from the Dolph Lundgren Masters of the Universe movie, but it was it was cool overall. Um, the music was overall cool. The um, there was a moment in there where it included some Queen music, which was interesting. The thing is, it was I mean, I love Queen music, but it basically had it had what sounded like a medley though of Queen music. So it had the line, "We're the masters of the universe." And then there was, I think I heard, "Here we are." Dun, 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 dun. And like I said, it sounded like a little mashup of like two or three clips from Queen songs, which was weird, all in one little spot. And it sort of took me out of the movie, to be honest. It was strange in that way. I liked it somewhat, but I don't think it was used very effectively. Um, I think the music overall didn't necessarily need the inclusion of the Queen clip. The I think I tend to agree with what some of the other reviewers said about Earth versus Eternia. In my mind, a good He-Man movie would be all on Eternia because you don't really need to involve Earth. But they made it work. They didn't spend too much time on Earth, thankfully. And what was interesting, and here's where I tend to agree with some other reviewers, I think they did use Earth as a contrast to Eternia. Eternia is kind of like an oasis or you know, a planet of beauty and masculinity, whereas Earth is full of mamby-pambies and virtue signaling, DEI, ESG garbage. And so that was, in essence, Adam's hell. So, again, all my videos are spoiler alerts. I don't break them up into non-spoiler versus spoiler. Um, in a nutshell, Eternia gets attacked by Skeletor and his crew. Adam, as a kid, is sent off to through a portal created by the sorceress to a planet Earth, which is his mother's home planet. So I don't particularly remember all the logistics, all the details of the true canon, but if I understand, uh, King Randor is the king of Eternia, and what's her name? Queen Marlena? Well, anyway, Adam's mother was originally from Earth. She was like an astronaut. She ended up on Eternia during one of her uh, um, trips, and she met and fell in love with Randor, and they became king and queen of Eternia, something like that. Well, anyway, Adam, as a kid, during the attack on Eternia, is whisked to, was it from Eternia or Castle Grayskull that they did? Had to be Castle Grayskull. Well, the sorceress, played by Morena Baccarin, uh, the co-star of Deadpool, Wade's girlfriend. The Adam was basically told to escape, run off with the sword, and keep it with him at all times. He does. He goes to the portal. He does his best to hold onto the sword, but during the trip, he and the sword get separated. Fast forward 15 years later, and you know, Adam's kind of living in the his reality where he was told never to forget his where he's from, and everyone thinks he's kind of off his rocker because they don't believe him. How he's originally from this other planet and full of dragons and talking tigers and stuff. And it's Adam's realization, meeting with Beastman and Tila ultimately, who end up helping him realize where he's from. And through a tip, he also finds out where the sword is from, where the sword's located eventually. He literally did one of the "Have you seen my sword?" kind of signs on the web. And someone tipped him off. It was in a comic book shop and collectible store. He ultimately retrieves the sword, runs off with it, and that's how Beastman gets on his scent. Uh, I gotta say, Beastman, like I said, I really enjoyed the movie. Beastman and Trapjaw were pretty wicked. They're they posed a threat. They were menacing, is what I want to say. They're menacing, and they did a good job on them. There seemed, I don't know if it's so much DE, maybe it was partially DEI, but it wasn't like heavy fisted, heavy handed as other movies are. Like Idris Elba, of course, Black Man in Arms. Uh, Idris Elba actually did a good job, and he had some good kick-ass scenes where he was in the fight. Um, there was an Asian Ram Man, which was interesting. Um, but he did good. Um, and things like that. And I think Tila was Um, isn't she Latina? But Tila, I thought would be a problem for me in all the previews, all the trailers. She ended up being pretty cool. I ended up liking her in the end. And the her uniform, her costume grew on me over time and towards the end of the movie. But and she also kicked butt. She did really well. And it wasn't some girl boss movie. It was, I think the message was, standing your ground, standing for your beliefs. And if you get knocked down, then get right back up. Always have your own back if no one has yours, so that you can only move forward. I think it was a good message. I think we need more like this instead of things constantly knocking down and degrading men. Um, Special effects were fine. The battles were fine. I did not recognize all the vehicles. I think the main ship that the good guys were using was a Talon fighter. There was a sky sled, but I didn't like the way they designed the sky sled. I think they made it more practical, but the original sky sled was like the front of a tank, right? And the front of it detached. The front of it were, yeah, oh no, I got all wide. Oh fudge! Why does it do this? This is only just started happening. All right, let's see. So in this version of the camera, I'm okay, but in this version, I'm not. I don't know if you could how it looks on your end, but on my end, I look stretched out. I look oblong. Hold on, maybe this will work. No, no. Oh, weird. All right. So potentially the. Hold on. No, that doesn't work. All right. So wait. Hold on. All right. So potentially the rest of this stream will be me looking like Jabba the Hutt. All right. So the sky sled. So it looked kind of like the body of speeder bike in Star Wars. Um, I really wanted them to have um, the one from the toy line and the cartoon, where you're literally holding on to it with your hands on the sides and your feet on pedals or on the base and having to hold on to it for dear life. I thought that would have been so funny and cool, but they didn't. It was more like a speeder bike, but it worked. There was this other vehicle. I want something like Spider Rotor. It's got two spinning blades full of, excuse me, uh, full of hooked. Uh, they're like circular saw blades, basically. Two of them moving independently, or unless they rotate at the same speed in the same direction. I thought they were opposite, but I could be wrong. Those were pretty cool. I personally don't remember the ship that Skeletor flew in on, but other streamers have pointed out a particular vehicle that kind of has a skull shape, which is probably what they were after. Excuse me. What they were adapting? Uh, I'm not certain, but I thought I saw in one of the action scenes in the background, I thought I saw Jitsu, but maybe I was just seeing things. Other people have actually slowed down some of the scenes. I don't know if they caught it in the the trailers or the uh, preview, but someone caught a still of Merman in the background with a bunch of other crowds. Uh, excuse me. Uh, I'm not sure kids would like it. I think they would, but so many kids they aren't raised with toys anymore, or at least the kinds of toys we played with. I don't see Motu, Masters of the Universe, really selling off the shelves. They tend to be peg warmers, from what I've seen at least. But there was some profanity. Excuse me. A lot of people say the sh word, and um, they were doing adult innuendos. Um, some people were saying that it might be too silly, too full of jokes, but I think it actually worked for me. I was okay with them, even the ones about uh, Fisto. And I think the actors who played Fisto, Mankinek, and Ram Man did a good job. And in the way they did their action scenes, I think, they legitimized their style of fighting. So I personally thought it worked out really well. Uh, Interestingly, Skeletor, Jared Leto did well. I liked his performance with his voice. And I swear I heard him say the word boob once, calling He Man a big boob, or maybe it was one of his henchmen. I kind of wish he would have said it at least or two more times, because that's one of Skeletor's phrases. Um, kind of lean more into it. And at first I thought with Leto taking this kind of take on Skeletor, a more serious, deeper, menacing voice, that it wouldn't work, but it actually did. I was kind of looking more for the higher pitched voice from the cartoon, but this actually works pretty well too. Um, the just a sec. Excuse me. Sorry, I just had a big lunch and I'm trying to fight off a food coma. It's trying to take me down, man. Take me down. Um, so did that. What else? What else? What else? The the only thing, or the main thing well, there are a couple of things I was kind of concerned about. Again, this is spoiler territory. This whole stream, every one of my streams is spoiler filled. I didn't understand the need for King Randor to die. And it was goofy. He-Man accidentally kills King Randor, his own dad, because he's using the Sword of Power. He's trying to fight off Skeletor, and in the whole mess of it all, it shakes Castle Grayskull, or is it Snake Mountain, to its core, and some of the rock ceiling comes down onto his dad. And what was further also weird is that He-Man rushes over to his dad. Of course, he's gonna pull the rocks off of him. Oh, side note or segue. Speaking of pulling rocks off of him, although he did it more realistically, I thought it would have been cool if he lifted the boulders off of his dad and threw them like he would in the cartoon. Did the mirrored that animation from the cartoon. I thought that would have been so cool if they did, but I was watching for it, but they didn't. Um, so anyway, he removes the rubble from his dad, and he and his dad have what feels like several minutes to have a final discussion, which made me think all the while. You realize Skeletor and Evil Lyn are standing in the same room, right? They understand that he buried his own dad, and and I can only think that Skeletor and Evil Lyn are just hanging out at a distance, just standing there waiting for He-Man to have that final talk with King Randor, which which was kind of weird. And then after He-Man accepts that King Randor is dead, that's when Skeletor comes back into play and knocks He-Man out from behind. So it's like, all right, I guess you were giving He-Man his respects and letting him mourn his dying father. All right. The other thing I was kind of weirded out by is I think her name is Allison Brie. She's attractive, and I don't know what else she's been in, but I almost feel like she might have been miscast. I wasn't getting super evil vibes off of Evil Lyn. Oh, except when she had that fight with Tila. That was pretty good. That battle I enjoyed. But they tried to include some banter between her and Skeletor throughout the movie. And I couldn't tell for certain, but a part of me thought that Evil Lyn was giving off vibes that she was into Skeletor romantically. So I don't think that was a thing in the original cartoon. It was a thing, as I'm told, in the Kevin Smith animated version of He-Man, which sounded awkward. But I got the sense that Evil Lyn might have feelings for Skeletor. But in the end, uh, man, the final fight scene between He-Man and Skeletor, that was pretty cool. I like the camera work. They did like a mix of like slow-mo attacks, or when he made contact with Skeletor, it was they did like a pause or a slow-mo kind of effect, which I thought was pretty neat. Uh, Cringer was interesting. I I had not expected that voice out of Cringer, but I mean, I think I can live with it. So far, it's okay. It's not like turning me off. I don't think they've done his voice yet as Battle Cat. As I recall, they had a scene at towards the end where they're now in more canon accurate uniforms and costumes. And Cringer's still Cringer, but then there's a scene at the end where what the heck? Where Cringer is dressed in armor as Battle Cat and is now and He-Man's uh mounted on him. And he kind of rears up and roars. But I don't think we heard Cringer's voice as Battle Cat. And you didn't get to see a version of He-Man, Adam transforming into He-Man, and then pointing his sword at Cringer to turn him into Battle Cat. He's just immediately already Battle Cat in this other cutscene, I guess. Um, you'll want to stay for the credits. There's like is it a mid-credit scene or a quarter credit scene where you get a chance to see Orko and he kind of tells you the moral of the story, which was cute. And their interpretation of Orko looked pretty good. And then there's a scene at the very end where you get a teaser of She-Ra. I would like to see She-Ra in a movie in live action. And if anyone can do it, this team might be able to. The From the interviews I've seen, the woman playing She-Ra is actually a model. And she's attractive and all, but she's not quite what I envisioned as She-Ra. But then this one interview I saw of the director said that, it wasn't until the very, very end of production that they got permissions to run, uh, to use She-Ra. The whole copyright thing on the She-Ra versus He-Man IP is kind of out there. Similar to how Spider-Man is between Sony and Marvel. Technically is owned by Sony, but they share some rights with Marvel in MCU projects. Well, He-Man is one property, but She-Ra is not owned by the same company. It's like owned by two or three entities. I think it's down to two. But in any case, She-Ra looked, she didn't look bad, and the voice was fine, but I think she should look as close to the cartoon as possible, basically. This this model's face looked a little too much on the slim side. I think it should be a touch wider. I mean, she was very pretty, but she's not the kind of build I would imagine for Shira. Face and body. Uh, what else? What else? Uh, sorry, I was looking at a notification. So definitely stay till the very end so you get to see the end credit. Oh, um, so maybe it was set up like this. So Orko would be like 1/3 credits. Shiro would be 2/3 credits, and then the very very end credits is a shot of Evil Lynn. Uh, Previously she slipped away, and I guess He-Man and Tila and He-Man, Tila, Man at Arms, and Roboto uh, left the battlefield, so they didn't chase down Evil Lynn. And then Evil Lynn comes down in this end credit scene, picks up Skeletor's skull because he's quote unquote dead, and then raises the skull up to her face and says something to the effect, "Well, I can say this, you've looked better." And then she walks away. I think she's smiling as well. And then you hear Skeletor's laughing and crackle or cackling or laughing, whatever. So, and that's how it ends. So that's the end credit scene. So stay for the whole thing so you get all the little bits and Easter eggs and whatnot. Speaking of Roboto, uh, you know how Kristen Wiig did horrible with Solo, a Star Wars story, where she was, what is it, 7337, something like that? No, T337. And when she dies, she somehow becomes part of the Millennium Falcon's computer. Well, that was horror, in part because it was so cringe. uh, Talking about alien uh robot lives matter, that kind of stuff, robots being slaves. It was a weird message, and now I'm thinking it's more an issue with the writing. But Kristen Wiig voiced Roboto. I don't know why they keep bringing her back for robot voices, but she voiced Roboto in this movie, Masters of the Universe, and she did fine. I thought she did fine. Um, I wasn't really cringing. Um, I guess they used her well, and I like at the end. You know how I said that they were doing canon accurate costumes, or more accurate than they started with. Um, they made Roboto look more like Roboto, thankfully. Uh, but the way they used Roboto in the story worked out pretty well. Oh, and of course, He Man. The actor, oh man, what's his name? Something Galaxophallasis. But he did a pretty good job as Adam. And then I always wondered how they'd handle the transformation. When I was watching the trailers, I was getting real nervous because I always thought in order to do He Man right, you'd probably have to have one guy who looked kind of like a meek human, kind of like how you got Superman versus Clark Kent. Clark Kent is kind of meager and fumbling and uh, nerdy and shy. Well, Adam, I view in a similar fashion, and Adam is kind of meek. So I always imagine you'd probably have to have some meek-looking guy as Adam, someone who is believable as the king's son, and basically give him the Bill Bixby, Lou Ferrigno treatment on the Hulk, the Incredible Hulk on the TV series, where one is the human character, one is the superpowered character. And then you'd have like some bodybuilder or something who happens to be able to act as He Man. But this worked out pretty well. I I still would have. It'd be tough though because I to have the same person playing both roles. I'd want He-Man to be even bulkier and beefier than Adam, but in order to pull that off, you'd have to like film all the scenes as Adam first in one, one build, and then you'd have to send him to the gym and have him bulk up like a professional bodybuilder like Arnold Schwarzenegger to get the huge proportions. That might be too big a hassle. But they did a pretty good job with this. And then the other thing they did address, which I appreciated, was there was kind of a sheath. Yeah, that's what it is. It's not a holster. For swords, it's a sheath on his back, right? So there's actually a way for the sword to attach to his back. And I always wondered how you would do that. I imagine you'd just have it hovering over his back so it would be like magic, like reverse magnetism or something like that, or a controlled magnetism. But they made a practical sheath, which really works. Um, so there's that. Yeah, I think it was well balanced. I didn't think it was too silly. I thought it was just silly enough. I liked the jokes. I didn't mind them. I didn't think they were really cringy. I mean, I kind of saw a lot of them coming, but I wasn't opposed to them. Some of them might go over kids' heads. Um, kids. So like I said, I don't know how many kids these days play with Masters of the Universe figures. I don't really see them flying off the shelves. Kids these days seem to be into, well, Marvel superheroes and oh, what's that one property? Oh shoot! Well, besides Bluey, there's this other brand that gets the young toddlers. Well, there's Paw Patrol. I think there's another one I was trying to remember. Well, those are the main ones: Bluey, Paw Patrol, MCU. Um, but I I don't hear of kids these days actually watching the old cartoon MCU cartoons. I mean, there are probably them out there, but I don't see the figures flying off the shelves. It seems like the only ones who are buying them off the shelves are collectors because that's who they seem to be targeting these days. The manufacturers, that is. But yeah, I had a lot of fun. I enjoyed the movie. I would watch it again. I don't know if I'd buy the figures. I don't know. I think Hot Toys also released some figures. Uh, and they're like the ones where you don't see their joints, which is really cool. I like the ones that look more realistic. Um, Not so realistic that they give you give that uncanny valley effect, but more realistic without those really awkward looking joints that break up the human anatomy and all these little pieces. I know it's additional points of articulation, but to say get more realistic poses, but it makes them look ugly. You know. On the flip side, I don't want action figures so basic looking that you only have 5 points of articulation: two at the shoulders, two at the hip, and one at the head or on the neck. Um, but I heard, I haven't seen them yet in stores, but they're supposedly selling Masters of the Universe action figures based on the movie for $15 and under. I think there's like one line, maybe they're from different manufacturers, but I think there's one line that's selling them for $10 and one line that's selling them for 15, if I have it right, which is getting better. I mean, it's getting more in the reasonable, affordable price range for this day and age, unlike Star Wars and some of MCU where they're trying to charge $45 a figure. So as long as they keep this trend and keep their pricing around $5 or $8 for a figure with multiple points of articulation and lots of weapons, then yeah, I might start getting figures again. But yeah, I do hope they come out with uh oh, there's a funny little scene. This was actually released, I guess it was distributed by Amazon Movies or Amazon Video. Um, it's one of the brands that came up. But there's a scene in the movie, I think it was during the Beastman fight, where he was towering over He-Man about to take him out when you know, they're in a busy city in Oklahoma, I think, and an Amazon delivery truck rams into him, rams into I think Beastman, which was gave me a chuckle. Brand integration. Now, if only Amazon could improve their shipping promises. Um, so the beauty of it is, I actually have Amazon shipping and Amazon video. So if they opt not to release a sequel in theaters, I think they should, but if they opt not to release a sequel in theaters, then at least it should be released on Amazon Video, which I already have. It's the only streaming service I even use or have. And even at that, I barely use it. I always have trouble finding stuff to watch on streaming services. Uh, yeah, I was impressed. They uh, they wowed me. And again, Beastman and uh, Trapjaw were brutal. Oh, in terms of DEI, they also made Triclops black. I mean, I didn't particularly mind, but I wish. Uh, I'm not gay or anything, but I kind of wish he would be like uh, a heavily tanned European guy, you know? Not fake tan, but there's so many types of people in the world that I don't. It seems like Hollywood wants to replace so many popular key characters in our childhood into black people and exclusively black people and not other ethnicities. I mean, I was kind of surprised that they included an Asian guy as Ram Man. Um, I'm not sure who I otherwise would have put in the role of Ram Man. I I I was kind of leaning toward S- some Scotsmen, but with the accent, it might be overkill. You know, basically someone with wasn't Ram Man a redhead? I could be wrong, but the guy that they used, this Asian guy, I don't know the actor's name, but I think he did a good job. Like I said, I think the guys who played all the key roles did well, and they were an example of how they would effectively use their powers. Oh, speaking of Triclops, I only ever saw him use one of his eyes. I might have missed it, but he should have. We should have seen scenes of him spinning his eye around so he could use his different eyes. I think the one I saw was like sniper. Well, you know what? Hold on. See, what was weird about this is their interpretation of Triclops. They had him operating as a sniper. He had a long rifle and a long laser rifle. One of my favorite things about Triclops growing up was his badass longsword. It was a cool sword, almost as cool as a power sword of power. In part because it's just so freaking long. Um, I hope if they do a sequel that they give him a sword instead of some sniper rifle. That was kind of weird. I mean, I didn't particularly mind that they included a sniper in the movie, but Triclops? Triclops has three different eyes with three different purposes. Why make him a sniper? Anywho, I love the movie. Go watch it if you can in theaters. Give it some support. You know, the more support we put into, the more we talk with our wallets and put towards the movies we find good, the more a message it'll send to Hollywood of what is being done right, such as the case with Backrooms and Obsession versus Mandalorian Grogu. That concludes my out of the theater uh, review. Thanks for your time. Um, I may or may not stream later tonight. I was going to do a Star Wars gaming stream, the Old Republic MMO. However, it's already 8:05 p.m. Eastern, and I believe it being Sunday that the Real Review 3000 is starting his stream now. So check it out. Look for Real Review 3000. Um, it starts off with talking about funny, interesting news. Uh, Goes into fake toys and board games. And then the rest of the stream is the panelists playing Jackbox games. So yeah, I'm usually there in chat, and if I'm there long enough to be able to participate in the games, I'm one of the audience. So hope you all have a great one. Thanks for joining me on this review. Take it easy. Bye.